next speaker is Ben Kenyon, who's the Director of North Cybersecurity or North IT, and I'm never quite sure which, but no doubt you will enlighten us.
Hey Phil, how are you doing?
Ben, I'm doing very well. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thanks, good.
Over to you then.
I'm Ben Kenyon. I'm from North Cybersecurity. We're a cybersecurity business based in Middlesbrough. We focus primarily on penetration testing, vulnerability assessments, and we do technical audits for people in M&A and investment. So what are the current global threats? Well, according to the news and a Google image search, whenever we see an image of a hacker, it's usually a guy sat in a dark room in front of a computer, wearing a hoodie with lots of fancy graphics on his screen. I'm not sure why this guy is wearing a balaclava and sunglasses, or gloves for that matter, but there you go. In reality, this is very far from the truth. So what are these hackers after? Well, in the vast majority of cases, it's money. This is just good old-fashioned crime. They're trying to steal money, but they are doing it digitally. So instead of burgling someone or robbing a bank, they are using social engineering, scams, and hacking. The other side is cyber warfare, where nation states may target another country's infrastructure like power grids to cause disruption. Or if we look at something like the Stuxnet virus, which is malware created by the US and Israel to derail or at least delay the Iranian program to develop nuclear weapons. They did this by plugging a USB drive into an internal network of a nuclear facility. So what are the risks to governments, businesses, and people? Well, mainly the government threats will be down to disruption. So this is taking down power grids, trying to stop trains and airports, just a general massive disruption, anything that can affect the economy of a country and put people in a bit of a panic. And then distortion, the spread of misinformation. So we've all heard Donald Trump going on about fake news. Lots of things happening there with Russia, propaganda, misinformation, this person's good, this person's bad, etc. And then good old threats to nuclear power stations. If you can hack into a power station and cause a bit of a meltdown, why bother using nuclear weapons? And the volume and complexity of the cyber attacks against the UK are growing, and the range of actors is widening. The threat is becoming increasingly global and asystematic. Both states and non-state actors can easily access tools for disruptive purposes. And then kind of local government too can be affected by this. So Redcar and Cleveland Council were hit by a cyber attack earlier this year. A suspected malware attack basically encrypted all of the files across the entire council, leaving people unable to work and to deliver services. So online appointment bookings, planning, documents, social care, council housing, complaint systems were all knocked offline. Experts from the UK's National Crime Security Centre, the NCSC, were all drafted in to help and to restore them. So business threats is probably the kind of one of the main targets for cybercrime. Biggest at the moment, we would say, would be around invoice fraud and ransomware. So ransomware is kind of very, well, it's in the news quite a lot lately. Everyone seems to be getting affected by it. It can cripple a business. Invoice fraud is a big one too. There's not many people with policies and procedures in place to stop it. And this can be anything from using social media like LinkedIn. So for example, you could check somebody's LinkedIn profile, see if a managing director or the head of sales has gone to an exhibition. And if you know that they're out of the office and at a certain exhibition, a hacker could spoof an email to the finance team of that business, saying, hey, we're at this exhibition, we've got a problem with electricity, we haven't ordered it, we need to pay for this now because we can't get it on the stand, can you pay this invoice instantly? That invoice will go straight off to the finance team. I think it's very legitimate. If the email's spoofed and it looks very much similar to how the MD would send that email, they'll believe that that's legitimate, and they would pay the invoice. So unless there's a policy involved where, you know, you may say any invoice over X amount gets checked, anything that gets done on an urgent basis, which seems out of the ordinary, might get checked and verified before it gets paid. And then disgruntled staff, people being unhappy at work, they can harvest data while they're at work and do various things with that, sell it on, or basically if you don't lock them out of their accounts when they leave, you know, making sure you've got a good offboarding process in place. So if somebody leaves the business, they're locked down sufficiently where they can't access certain systems that they used to be able to access. And invoicing fraud, again, another example of this is just essentially fake phone calls or emails made to change people's bank details. So here there's two companies, one lost €200,000, either 453,000 euros. And all that the hackers did here was they phoned up the company, said, hey, we're one of your suppliers. Can you change the bank details of our company on your internal system? So they logged into their accounting package, they changed the bank details, so all invoices that then were getting paid to the supplier didn't go to the supplier, but they went to the hackers. Obviously a number of invoices had gone out before this was eventually found, and the company phoned up to say, hey, where are all these payments, where are all they going? But there was no policy in place to manage these processes. So, you know, these kind of things are quite new, people aren't aware of them, and without being aware of them, you wouldn't have a policy in place to manage that. So setting something up where, you know, you might do a phone call after somebody says, can you change the bank details, or just having something in place to do some extra checks and just be extra careful of which bank accounts you're paying money into. The other thing is data breaches on businesses. So we're hearing about data breaches a lot within the news. So Marriott was quite a big one. I believe initially they were looking at a £1 billion fine for losing it. Essentially, Marriott bought Starwood Hotels, and Starwood Hotels had been hacked previously to the purchase. And when Marriott bought them, they also bought that data breach and the fine that came with it. So the ICO are looking to fine Marriott, you know, close to £100 million for not being secure and losing people's basically credit card information, name, address, passport numbers, date of birth, etc. So that was quite a big fine for not being secure. So quite a big threat to businesses, and hackers will then obviously sell all those details on the black market, and people can start looking to get scammed more with those details being on there, or people just using their credit cards or being subject to identity theft because of that. Which brings us on to personal threats. So we're looking at things like online fraud, scams, bank fraud, fake calls. This guy here, he was buying a house, and his solicitor sent him an email saying, can you send the money for the deposit? The email was fake and the bank account was fake. The guy sent his deposit, which he thought was going to his solicitors, but it went to fraudsters. The solicitors said, where's the money? He said, I've sent you it. And of course they hadn't. And this was quite a costly fraud, you know, £67,000 gone, not able to get back. Ritz one, which was quite recent. So essentially somebody had hacked the reservation list at the Ritz and phoned up people that were due to come for afternoon tea, saying they had faked the phone number to spoof the Ritz's number, called them up, said, hey, we're from the Ritz, we see you've booked in, can you make a deposit on your credit card to confirm the booking? When they got the deposit, the credit card details, they just went to Argos and started buying things. Pretty simple, really. So where are these risks coming from? Well, a number of places. So this is just individual hackers, people that are just sat on their own, just seeing what they can do. Maybe they used to do it for fun and now they're realizing they can make some money out of it. Organized crime gangs, moving from their traditional methods of crime to digital crime, really. Then nation states, terrorists, spies, staff, business competitors, etc. North Korea very famously tried to do a $1.1 billion, I think, bank robbery online. They ended up managing to steal about £81 million from a Bangladesh bank, where, you know, North Korea are essentially banned from trading with most countries. So the only way they can make money is by essentially bank robbery through digital means and Bitcoin scams. So moving on to kind of how these are happened. So types of malware, you'll probably mostly heard of most of these: ransomware, spyware, worms, keyloggers, viruses, etc. Keyloggers are quite a good one. You know, USB sticks, most companies now should have a policy where people don't just find a USB stick in the car park and plug that in. That can contain keyloggers, which can install straight away and start logging what people are typing and send that back off to the hackers and harvest all the information that people are writing. So one of the best ways to do this is to stay alert, be safe, and educate people on the methods used. These methods come in various forms, from phishing, which is essentially just mass emails going out, sticking your kind of hook in the water and hoping someone catches, to spear phishing, where you target a specific individual. There's also whaling, which is where you're going after the biggest fish, so you're targeting the boss at a business, using probably social media mining, trying to find out as much details as that person as you can. Vishing, which we've mentioned before, it's a phone phishing, where you phone up a company, say you're from a supplier, etc. And smishing, which is probably more people personally. You know, you're getting a text message claiming to be from the bank, go here and log on, and you know that's sending details off to places which the hackers have. Again, stop this. You know, educate people. Don't take the bait. Make sure that there's training in place for people, staff members, and anyone within an organisation. I'm just conscious, Claire, we're kind of running out of time. I think if you let me know when we can go on. So passwords are probably the biggest security weakness, and especially people using insecure ones. And when it comes to security, this is quite a good graphic. It shows how long it would take somebody to crack passwords depending on their complexity and number of characters. So, you know, 4 characters and only numbers is just pretty much instant these days. Whereas if you're using numbers, uppercase, lowercase, symbols, and 18 character passwords, that's what, 7 quadrillion years to get through that and crack it. So complexity is worth noting. Just a bit on passwords that are generally held in they're encrypted using hash function. So a good way people can do something themselves to make that a bit more complicated is a method called salting. Now, most people probably use the same password over every single website or system that they log into. One thing they can do is, you know, you can improve this significantly just by saying to that person, look, just add on the first 2 letters of the website that you use to the end of that password, and that will then effectively make it so they're using a different password across every system, but it's easier to remember. Quite a good little method. Or simply use a password manager. Chrome and Firefox have them built in. This can help save time, and they can even auto-suggest decent passwords for people to use. So best methods to protect against all these global threats is training, good procedures and policies, and then testing. So making sure that the systems and measures that you've set up are working and fit for purpose. So that pretty much covers it for me. I think we're about on time there, Claire. Managed to rush through those last ones quite quickly. Is there any questions?
Ben, that was great. Thank you very much. And
No
just one
worries.
question I wanted to ask, and that's is nation-state terrorism in terms of cybersecurity, is it really a thing, or is it something that's hyped up?
I mean, it depends. Most of it is, if you take North Korea, for example, they're just looking to get money because they can't trade with most people. So they're just trying to rob Bitcoin, rob banks. I mean, the threat levels of people trying to take out power grids, I wouldn't say that that's a huge thing at the moment. Somebody in the intelligence services may say differently. They might be actively targeting that. But I think most of this is down to opportunistic crime. Systems out there now are still quite vulnerable. Not everyone's got their cybersecurity up to scratch, and people can still be tricked into giving up information. And you know, it's always going to be a threat, really.
Yeah, I think there's enough low-hanging fruits not to get too
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great, Ben, and no doubt we'll speak to you later. But
Great.
thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Phil.
Okay. Cheers now.